My name is Clarissa Monroe. Growing up, I was the quiet one, the helper who stayed in the background, while my younger sister, Vanessa, got everything brand new. Designer clothes, private dance lessons, the kind of attention I only dreamed about. I was left with hand-me-downs and empty words. My parents used to say I was low maintenance, like it was some kind of compliment. But I always knew what it really meant. I was invisible. Invisible in my own home. Invisible at family dinners. Invisible in my parents' eyes. Vanessa's laughter filled every room, drawing their gaze like a magnet. And me? I became the shadow, the afterthought. I never complained. I learned to swallow the disappointment, to hold back the tears. I was the quiet one, because speaking up felt useless. Every time I tried to ask for a little attention, I was met with sighs, or told I was being too sensitive. So I stayed, silent. I became the family's fixer, the one who helped without expecting praise. I ran errands, washed dishes, sewed buttons, and kept the peace. It wasn't that I didn't want more. I just learned early that wanting more meant being ignored. Sometimes, late at night, I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder what it would be like to be seen, to be chosen. But that was a fantasy, because in my family, Vanessa was the star, and I was just the girl who faded into the wallpaper. When Vanessa announced her wedding, the whole house changed. Suddenly, everything was about her. The sparkling invitations, the endless phone calls, the excitement that filled every corner. The energy was electric, like a party I wasn't invited to but couldn't stop watching. I told myself maybe this time would be different. Maybe after all these years of being invisible, I'd finally be noticed. Maybe they'd see me, not as the quiet helper, but as Vanessa's sister. So I threw myself into the preparations. I ran errands, picked up flowers, and helped organize the seating charts. I even stayed up late altering her dress, thread by thread, so it would fit perfectly. No one asked me to do these things, I offered. Because even if they didn't see me, I wanted to be part of this moment. But the closer the wedding day came, the more I felt like a ghost. The house buzzed with activity, laughter, and excitement, but I was still the background, still the one who cleaned, who made sure things ran smoothly without a single thank you. I watched Vanessa practice her vows, glowing with happiness, surrounded by family who adored her. And I smiled quietly, pretending I wasn't aching inside. I told myself it was enough just to be there. But deep down, I knew I was hoping for something more. A moment where I wasn't overlooked, where I mattered. Little did I know how quickly those hopes would be crushed. Because the night of the rehearsal dinner, everything changed. And the cold words that came next would remind me exactly where I stood in this family. The rehearsal dinner was supposed to be a warm gathering, a chance to celebrate, to laugh, to share in the excitement. But from the moment I walked in, I felt the weight of invisible walls closing around me. I was helping in the kitchen, carrying trays and refilling drinks, trying to stay out of the way. I thought maybe that was enough. Maybe if I worked hard and stayed quiet, no one would notice me. But then Mom found me. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the chatter like a knife. "Clarissa," she said, her eyes cold and tired, "don't embarrass us tomorrow. Just stay in the back and help with the food." I froze. No warmth, no kindness. Just that cold reminder that I was an outsider in my own family. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words got stuck. I smiled and nodded, swallowing the sting that burned my throat. I watched Vanessa surrounded by her friends, glowing in her beautiful dress, her laughter filling the room like sunshine. I wanted to be happy for her. I really did. But all I felt was invisible. I helped quietly, serving drinks and clearing plates, pretending their words didn't hurt. I told myself this was just one night. Maybe tomorrow would be different, but it wasn't. Because sometimes, when you're pushed so far into the shadows, the darkness becomes your home, and the people you thought would protect you, they show you exactly where you belong. The wedding day arrived with all its pomp and glamour, flowers, music, sparkling dresses, and endless smiles. But for me, it was like being invisible in a crowd of people who pretended I didn't exist. I wasn't given a seat with the family. Instead, was told to stand near the kitchen, out of sight but in plain view of the busy staff and clinking glasses. The words felt like a slap, but I didn't say a thing. I watched Vanessa walk down the aisle, radiant and surrounded by people who adored her. Everyone was focused on her happiness, her moment. And there I was, forgotten, overlooked, like a ghost who belonged nowhere. The guests smiled and laughed, raising their glasses, but none of those smiles reached me. I carried trays, refilled drinks, and made sure no one's glass went empty. It was a role I had played my whole life, the invisible helper, the background. At one point, Chloe, one of Vanessa's closest friends, smirked as she passed by and whispered, "Make sure you keep those drinks coming, Clarissa. You're good at that." I forced a smile and nodded, my heart breaking quietly inside. I wasn't family. I was a servant in my own home's celebration. That night, I cried quietly in the empty kitchen, holding a glass I had refilled dozens of times, feeling the weight of being unseen, unheard, unwanted. I realized then how deeply I was forgotten. Not just today, but for years. The party went on. The celebration continued. But my place was clear. I was an outsider. Just 2 days after the wedding, everything changed. I came home from a long day, hoping for a quiet moment to collect myself. Instead, my parents were waiting, faces stern, voices cold. They handed me a suitcase, just like that. "You're grown now, Clarissa," my father said without looking me in the eye. "Vanessa's starting her life, and we need to focus on her future." It felt like a punch to the gut. I stood there, suitcase in hand, feeling like I was being shoved out of the only home I'd ever known. The place where my childhood memories lived, where I thought family meant safety. But safety was a lie. They didn't see me. They never really did. My mother's eyes didn't soften. No apology, no explanation, just a cold, hard dismissal. I wanted to scream, to ask why. But the words died on my tongue. Instead, I packed the few things I owned, the ones that fit into a single bag, and walked out. The door closed behind me like a verdict. I was alone. And yet, even as the pain cut deep, a strange sense of clarity settled inside me. If this family didn't want me, then maybe it was time I stopped waiting for their approval. Maybe it was time to find my own place, a place where I belonged, because being pushed out didn't mean the end. A week after I was forced out, my phone rang. It was a voice I hadn't heard in years, the lawyer who handled my late grandfather's affairs. His name was Mr. Whitman, and he sounded serious but kind. "Clarissa, I have some important news for you," he said. "Your grandfather made changes to his will shortly before he passed, and you're the sole beneficiary." I blinked. My heart pounded in disbelief. "You mean I inherit his house? The land? Everything?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Yes. The entire estate is now legally yours." I sat down, stunned. After all the years of feeling invisible, overlooked, and discarded, fate had something unexpected in store. The house my family lived in, the one I had been kicked out of, belonged to me now. The reality hit hard. Was about to walk back into the place where I had felt invisible, ignored, and hurt. But this time, I would be the one holding the power. The lawyer arranged a meeting, and I knew I had to face my past, no matter how painful, because this was more than just an inheritance. The day I walked back through that front door, my heart was pounding like a drum. The house looked the same. Every corner held memories, some sweet, most bittersweet. But this time, everything had changed. I wasn't just Clarissa, the invisible daughter. I was the owner. I could hear laughter and voices coming from the living room, my parents and Vanessa, probably celebrating after the wedding, still wrapped in their world. When they saw me step inside, their faces froze. Confusion, shock, and something like fear flashed in their eyes. I held up the papers Mr. Whitman had given me, the proof that this house was legally mine. My father went pale, and my mother's lips trembled as she tried to find words. Vanessa just stared, speechless. No one said anything at first. The silence was thick, heavy. I didn't want to cause a scene. I just looked around, took a deep breath, and said softly, "This house, all of it, belongs to me now." They looked at me differently, not as the quiet helper, but as someone with power, someone who wasn't to be ignored. For the first time, I felt seen. I wasn't here to start a fight. I wasn't asking for anything. I was telling them it was time for respect, because after years of being pushed aside, overlooked, and forgotten, I finally had my voice, and I wasn't going to be silent anymore. Standing there, holding the papers that changed everything, I watched their faces crumble. Shock, anger, disbelief. My father's jaw tightened. My mother's eyes welled up, but this time, not with joy. Vanessa just stared, her confident smile gone. Merely, weeks ago, they handed me a suitcase and sent me away like I was nothing. Now, I stood as the rightful owner, and the power balance had flipped completely. My mother's voice cracked as she pleaded, "Clarissa, please, let's talk. We didn't mean to hurt you. Your family." I remembered every cold word, every ignored plea, every moment I was treated like an invisible servant in my own home. "Family," I said, voice steady but firm, "means more than just blood. It means respect, kindness, and honesty, things I never got from you." They looked away. I could see the guilt creeping in, but it was too late for apologies. I wasn't the quiet sister anymore. I was the one who held the keys, the one who had been pushed out but came back stronger. I told them plainly, "You can stay here if you want. But things have changed. I'm not the girl who waited quietly in the shadows. This house, this life, it's mine now. And I expect to be treated with the respect I deserve." They didn't say much after that. The silence was louder than any argument. In that moment, I realized something important. Power isn't about anger or revenge. It's about standing tall, claiming your worth, and refusing to be invisible any longer. For the first time, I felt truly free. And I knew, whatever came next, I had finally found my place. Days passed, but the house felt different. Still the same walls and rooms, but the energy had shifted. I wasn't just a visitor anymore. This was my home. My parents and Vanessa kept their distance, avoiding me like I was some storm they couldn't weather. I didn't chase them. I let silence fill the space between us. Sometimes I caught myself thinking about all the years I stayed, quiet, letting hurt pile up inside me, pretending it didn't matter. But it did. It mattered deeply. Now I didn't have to pretend anymore. I started making small changes, little acts of reclaiming what was mine, rearranging the furniture, putting my photos on the walls, even cooking meals for myself without waiting for permission or thanks. The house that once felt cold and unwelcoming slowly became a place where I could breathe, think, and heal. And in the quiet, I found my strength. It wasn't loud or angry. It was steady, calm, like a river that carves its way through stone, not with force, but persistence. I wasn't interested in breaking my family down or tearing them apart. I wanted them to see me, for real this time. I wanted to prove that being quiet didn't mean I was weak, because strength isn't about yelling the loudest or winning every fight. Sometimes it's about standing firm in your truth and refusing to be diminished. I wasn't the invisible sister anymore. I was Clarissa Monroe. The days turned into weeks, and slowly, life in the house began to settle into a new rhythm. My rhythm. I woke up each morning feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. My family? They didn't disappear completely, but the cold stares and silence were still there. I didn't expect an apology or for everything to be fixed overnight. Some wounds take time to heal, if they ever do. But I realized I didn't need their approval to move forward. I had my own future now, built on my terms. The house wasn't just a building anymore. It was a symbol, a reminder that I mattered, even when no one else saw it. I thought about the little girl I used to be, the one who stayed quiet, who helped without thanks, who carried the weight of being invisible. I'm still that girl, but she's stronger now. I'm no longer invisible. I'm a woman who fought for her place, who took what was rightfully hers, and who isn't afraid to claim her worth. That house, it's mine, not just on paper, but in my heart. And as I closed the door behind me each night, I didn't feel alone. I felt ready for whatever comes next. Because no matter what my family said or did, I finally knew my value. And that made all the difference.